Okay, is everybody ready? Is everybody laying down?
I'm laying down.
Okay, amazing. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How Come. This week, we are talking all about pegging, anal penetration, whatever you want to call it, inspired by Cara DeLevigne's stolen phrase that she wore on her chest at the Met Gala, peg the patriarchy. There is a lot of discourse going on the internet about what peg the patriarchy means, if pegging is even a word that people want to use. I know a lot of people are offended by it. And to those people, it's going to be used a lot in this episode, but we do talk about why it can be problematic and other words that you can use instead. But everybody has been requesting this topic for such a long time, and this cultural moment happened where Cara wore this stolen phrase on her chest. There has been a lot of discourse about this phrase on Twitter, what it means, what Cara meant by it, and what the sex educator who invented the phrase in 2015 meant by it. We are so delighted to be able to speak with sex educator and inventor of the phrase peg the patriarchy, Luna Mattatas, about what pegging means, what she meant by that phrase, how she felt when she saw it pop up uncredited on Cara DeLevigne's Dior number at the Met Gala last week. And then later in the episode, we are welcoming back Lola Jean from season 1 to teach us some pegging tips, and our new friend Brian, too, who tells us why he enjoys pegging and how he got into it. There are so many sexy tips and tricks in this episode. Highly recommend listening to the whole thing. There's also a lot of social commentary. Some of it you might hear mentioned more than once, but don't worry. It's sexy. It's all very sexy. I've been listening to you guys. I know a lot of you have been saying more sex. We got a very bad review. Well, not a bad review, but we got a 3-star review. We don't usually get 3-star reviews. And it was like, I love Remy and Robin, but I miss the sex. We need more sex. None of this influencer shit anymore. And like, yeah, I know we talk about Instagram and TikTok and the Met Gala, but this stuff does apply to sex. Like last week's episode, if you just looked at the episode, you're like, ew, Greek life. Totally. But it always applies to sex. I would never steer you wrong. And if I have, I'm sorry, but don't worry. It gets sexy, sexy, sexy in this episode, and you are going to love it. Thanks to Foria for supporting How Come. Foria designs all-natural sexual intimacy products for women, people with vulvas, and the people who love them. Get 20% off your first order at foriawellness.com/howcome or use promo code HOWCOME at checkout. Thanks to BetterHelp for supporting How Come. For 10% off your first month, go to betterhelp.com/howcome. Start living a better life today. Thanks to Dipsea for supporting How Come. Dipsea is an audio app full of short, sexy stories. If you're looking to heat things up, there's a story waiting for you. Get an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/howcome. So first we're going to hear from Luna, and then we're going to hear from Lola and Brian. You guys are going to love this episode.
How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz.
You guys, coming to you from the floor of her apartment. Welcome, Luna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Of course. Thank you for coming. This is a huge get. The whole internet is a Twitter with peg the patriarchy and this phrase that you invented that showed up on Cara DeLevigne's chest.
Yes. Who knew this would be the week that I woke up and saw Peg the Patriarchy at the Met Gala?
Seriously?
Yeah.
What was your first feeling when you saw that?
Good question. I'm just in my little home, and I was teaching my little kink classes online. And usually when I finish teaching a class, I love to go to Twitter or Instagram and say, hey, this is what I was teaching. And so I went on Twitter and I saw tons of mentions, and I thought, that's not good. And then I saw the photos and people sort of assuming that this was a cool collaboration for me and like how cool Luna's, art is there. And so I was, almost riding that vibe for a few seconds and kind of being like, this is really cool that it's in a different space. It's got visibility. And then I looked more into it, and I read Cara's interpretation and her language around it, and also the fact that I wasn't part of the collaboration. So I immediately was hit with this sense of disappointment, right? And just like this would have been so easy not to do, so easy.
100%. And so what I haven't even read what her interpretation was.
Yeah, I think her words were somewhere around, it's kind of like stick it to the man. It's about like woman power. And, which is a very flat version of feminism, and it's not intersectional. It really isn't kind of challenging things. And also, the behavior of not crediting a queer creator of color,
right?
That's very patriarchal in itself. Patriarchy 100%. Competition and power over and paternalism, and so we in order to dismantle it, we're gonna have to stop doing this nonsense.
Girl boss.
Yeah, girl boss, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I was immediately like, okay, there are two very different ways that people could take this and that people did on the internet.
Yes.
One way is that way. And then what is the way that you intended it to be read?
Yeah. And I'm happy to share that. And I like what you said about it, that you could immediately see like there were two divisions of it. And I think that's also the difference between, a white, thin, cis privileged woman carrying a message versus me, who's rooted in the work every single day, in my body, in my social location, in my work. And so that flattening of it also creates this room for distortion, for even further divisiveness. I mean, if you're anti-patriarchy and you don't agree with Peg the Patriarchy, we're still on the same team. We're very much like we can't take the system down with one set of tools. And I appreciate some of the spirited debate around ideas of sex and gender and, sexuality, and how our sexual liberation is really in a context of all of these systems. So when I originally started it, that was my same spirit too. It was about connecting, pleasure as a revolution. Of course, through our erotic selves, but it's a metaphor, and it very much is about subversion. And so using subversive behaviors, language, attitudes, actions in order to dismantle patriarchy.
Yeah. I also read it in a way of like, give the patriarchy like a little taste of pleasure, like.
Yeah, that's.
Fuck them up the ass kindly.
I think we've seen slogans like this. Like we've seen fuck the patriarchy. And when we say fuck the patriarchy or fuck the system, we don't mean have sex with the system. Right. Like that's not how we're using that language. And so the alliteration of it, the play on the metaphor, the play on the fantasy is also just part of, how we create sociocultural languages that carry and memes that carry. And how do we make this, something that works for people in a playful way. And creating something that creates debate is not a loss. Like that there are tons of people who understand. Yeah. Tons of people who understand the original and the current intention. I mean, all of my language all over the place ever since 2016 has always been about subversion. And so it would have been really powerful to have a platform to talk about that.
Totally. Yeah. Like you have a platform of your own, but it's definitely not on the same scale as Cara's.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't imagine that like you've been trying to get this phrase out there, but like we know how hard it is to like fight back with like the internet. Like they don't want to push through Peg the Patriarchy unless it's like on the carpet of the Met Gala, which is like, well, that's very hard to get into.
Yes, absolutely. I think it negates all of the barriers that I have had to fight for every single day carrying this brand. And, things I think people don't appreciate if you don't have a small business, if you don't have a trademark, if you don't have a small brand, if you're not a maker. There's so much censorship around being in a sex-based business. Yeah. There's so much censorship around, Cara is co-owner of Laura DiCarlo and their sex shop. Like many other sex shops owned by powerful, rich white women, it can get verified on Instagram, can post content without worrying about their accounts taken down. And, my account got taken down last November for I wasn't violating the rules, but I mean, it's easy and it makes me vulnerable by the social locations that intersect for me. Whereas Cara doesn't have the same thing.
Yeah.
The patriarchy already validates her existence.
Right.
Whereas mine, it's trying to actually eliminate me. It wants to subjugate. It wants to humiliate, objectify.
I was listening to the news the other day because I am an old 20-year-old.
Yes, you are.
And apparently Facebook has a whitelisting system that they do for the like top 1%. And the normal rules that we go through that we have, they took those away completely for like top creators and brands and influencers because they kept taking down posts that they didn't need to take down. And then the influencers and everything were getting so pissed off, like, why are you taking down our shit that's, you know, part of us? So they created a second set of rules, which is basically no rules for these creators to go through so that they don't have the same sort of filtering process that we have every time we post something. So they can just post, like you see the big meme accounts on Facebook or whatever that are posting all of this like sexual stuff and whatever. And it's fine because they've got such a huge following that they now go into a different
that it's okay
rule set
now
entirely. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we just need to have 50 million followers for them to
right, but it's very hard to
look,
get to that point, especially
they're just segregating it even more.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and especially what Luna's saying, that like if you are a creator of color, like it's hard to get to that point because your stuff is already being suppressed.
Oh yeah, like I have to spell things wrong, you know. I can't talk about, you know, clits and pleasure, but you're saying there's accounts that are way more vulgar and obscene than mine and harmful, and yet they can continue to exist.
Totally. I just want to talk about your experience as a sex and pleasure educator because you have over 10 years of experience in that space. How did you start educating? What got you interested?
Yeah, I love that question because it's so cool to see how many different pathways into this space there are. And so 100%. Some people do very formal pathways or informal. So for me, I was working and studying in sexual health promotion. And so I was working mostly with STI management, so sexually transmitted infections, information management, prevention. And I worked overseas in Eastern and Southern Africa. I worked all over Canada and the US. Wow. And then around like 2015, I was like, you know, people want to learn about pleasure. And so no matter where I was in the world, I could be talking about condoms till I was blue in the face. And someone would be like, yeah, but how can I get her to eat my butt? Or how can I get him to do this thing, you know? And so I started teaching at local feminist sex positive shops in Toronto. And in that space, it was really cool because I could keep my equity lens. I could talk about intersections. I could talk about, you know, how we internalize a lot of this stuff and how it affects our erotic expression.
Cool. We also kind of talked about how the word pegging can be a bit problematic in itself.
Yeah. I think because I've seen some of these debates and you know, considerations as well, and people are. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff around it, but I think I'll tell you what my interpretation of pegging is, and we know its history in Dan Savage's coining it in the early 2000s, and it came as a way to talk about anal sex for cisgendered heterosexual men and receiving it from people without penises.
Yeah,
and you know, I think that there's such a wonderful opportunity in the way that our erotic pleasure shows up. And sometimes it eroticizes things that are parts of our darkness or things that are painful. And so internalizing homophobia, dealing with externalized homophobia, having a name for the act was actually really powerful at that time. You know, since then, of course, anybody of any gender can peg. You know, we can all embody masculine or feminine sides. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's all play. It's all fantasy. And I think the way I see pegging is as a fantasy. It's a form of strap-on play with a particular vibe. And so even within pegging, you could be sensual. You could be rough. You could be dominant. You could have no power exchange. It could simply be someone giving or receiving. But because it's a cisgendered if you're talking about a cisgendered heterosexual man, you know, the expectation through heteronormativity, which is reinforced through patriarchy, is that he's supposed to be the giver. So it does become subversive if he's the receiver. And some people like to eroticize that. And if you don't, that's also valid. But our fantasies aren't always a straight line. It's much more complex. It's much more layered. And it's not always intellectual about why we're into the things that we're into.
The word peg, like, for some reason, it does sound like a teeny bit violent and like against the other person's will. Like, maybe it's because of the phrase, like, stick a square peg in a round hole or whatever. Like, it's always like sounded like a bit uncomfortable to me. And like, when somebody's like, oh yeah, I pegged hit. Like it sounds like doing something to penetrate another person, whereas it can be like giving that person like the joy of being penetrated. Like it has different vibes depending on the way that you say it or the way that it just hits your ear.
Yes, that's such a good point, because we see that language with other things, right? We see like, oh, I fucked her or I fucked him. You know, it sounds rougher than maybe it was intended, maybe it happened, but you know, it usually people are using that language either because that's how we talk about it in mainstream society. We have so much shame. We have so much patriarchy. So much of the porn that's mainstream is so violent, so rough, and you know, really portraying a male gaze that's like adopted from patriarchy. But you know, when we look at pegging and we look at other types of fantasies like dominance, and so if you're a femdom or you're into feminine dominance, it's still just dominance, but it's a subversive fantasy because it's about feminine dominance, because we don't associate femininity with dominance in society.
Yeah. And so maybe that word will go away once like we do associate more feminine or not even dominance, just more equality. You know, like I think that's probably why the phrase came from. It's because the patriarchy does exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I mean, it might be some people's goals to eliminate things like that, but I really teach from a place of empathy and meeting people where they're at. And your fantasies are your fantasies, and we don't need more shame in this space, right? Like, I think if you're doing your fantasies in a way that's consensual and empathetic and risk aware, you know, also considering if you're going into a space where you're playing with power or you're playing with darkness, that you've done the work to understand your power outside of this space, and how are you going to create a boundary and a container so that playing with power is safe in this erotic way.
Yeah. I also had a thought when I first saw Cara that it seemed more violent, and then afterwards I was thinking maybe it was because of like the military vibe vest that she was wearing. Do you think that, like, in your opinion, did that add or take away from the desired message?
Yeah, probably. And I mean, yeah, and I think her vibe and her look is probably reinforces that.
Yeah. It's up in the air. It's art, you guys. It's stolen art. It's up to your interpretation. Art. I also just really hate this idea of feminism as like if somebody did something shitty to you, do it back. That's not how we fight things that we believe in, is just doing the same thing to the other person. And I feel like that's what they're doing with like making the message more violent, making it this almost like rape thready, peg the patriarchy, you know, like survivors have been fighting for such a long time to be heard and to be taken seriously, that like if the response is like, okay, well, do it back. Like, no.
Yeah.
That sounds like putting out more harm into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's many different ways, and it's okay to be angry. It's okay to want to retaliate. That's often the parts of us that are protective, you know, where the patriarchy is real and it's threatening and it's dangerous. And so I understand like wanting to move in that direction or with that vibe. But yeah, it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily serve us the best, because patriarchy hurts all genders. And while, you know, it's like very much cis men's behaviors that are upholding the system of patriarchy, we can all internalize toxic masculine. I can act in toxic masculine ways. I can act in internalized misogynistic ways. So it just doesn't, you're right, it doesn't make sense from a kind of just do the other side of the coin and it's going to be okay. Like we can be angry, but we have to move in ways that are about our liberation all being connected.
Yeah. And also don't make pegging seem violent, because I think that's what that's where a lot of people are like scared. Like most of our questions came in being like, how do I not hurt him? And it's like, well, don't do it in a violent way. Like, do it in a loving way. Do it slowly. Use lube.
Yeah. Use lube. Yeah. Make lube your love language.
Ooh, speaking of lube. Okay. So a lot of you have been asking about CBD lubes and stuff, and I have a CBD lube for you that I just used recently. Oh my God. This is the one. You guys, Euphoria. Oh, they design all natural sexual intimacy products for women, people with vulvas, and the people who love them. If you want to have sex with a vulva and make it comfortable and amazing, please use Foria Lube. We love it. A lot of vulva owners experience sexual pain or discomfort, and lube is the way to eradicate that. Foria's products make you feel more relaxed, they enhance arousal, and they increase sexual pleasure. They help you achieve bigger and better, more memorable orgasms. Their formulas come in a variety of formats to meet your needs. There's topical oils for arousal, pleasure, and relief. There's daily tonics for balance and well-being, suppositories for localized benefits, and bath salts for in-the-moment relaxation. And what's good for nature is what's good for our bodies, which is why Foria's products are always organic, amazing, plant-based, and sustainably sourced. Each of their unique lines combines the benefits of broad-spectrum CBD and USDA organic certified and regeneratively grown hemp with organic and sustainably grown plant extracts that enhance and amplify CBD's effects. It's amazing. Foria's intimacy line also uses all natural botanicals like kava to make sex more comfortable by relieving tension and discomfort. And you know, sexual pleasure is self-care. So this helps support your sleep quality, boosts your mood, enhances your immune system, and connects us to our bodies. I have loved using these products. The sex oil with CBD is a dream because it comes with a little dropper, unlike pumps and I don't know, other like lotions that like you can't put on your parts. Like you just put this little dropper on you. It doesn't get all over the place. It just like falls sexily in the right places. And if you need more, you just put more. But because it transitions so nicely from like a massage oil, sex oil to a sexy sex oil, it's just like so very comfortable. And I literally keep it right by our bedside table now because usually when I have wanted to go at it and I'm not wet, Ben will spit on me or spit on his hand or something. And I have to be like, stop doing that. Like, I know you watched weird porns as a child, but like, that's not good for us. It dries us up. It doesn't feel nice. And like, just use this Foria Intimacy Sex Oil with CBD, and now he does, and it feels so good. And also you get like the massage beforehand really warms you up too. Highly recommend. It's also like amazing for the brain just to have it by the bed because you know that there's something there if you need a little help getting ready. Like sometimes you're mentally horny but your body's not following, and this just gives you a little boost. You just drip the little thing on right on your clip, and then you rub it on your nip. I rubbed it all over my tits. So nice. A self massage. Fantastic. Treat yourself. I'm obsessed. I love it. Highly recommend it. Hope you guys get it. Tell me if you like it. Right now you can get 20% off your first order at foriawellness.com/howcome, or you can use the promo code howcome at checkout. So that is Foria, Foria, wellness.com/howcome for 20% off your first order. So good. I actually, just this afternoon, I was listening to my Dipsea. Do you guys remember Dipsea? My favorite audio app that helps me escape to sexy places. Ooh, yeah. Everyone needs an escape, but those can be hard to come by right now. Enter Dipsea. Let yourself get lost in a world where good things happen and where your pleasure is the only priority. Spring has sprung and now it's your turn. Bring up the warmth of the outside world back into the bedroom with Dipsea. If you're looking to heat things up, there's a story waiting for you. Dipsea is an audio app full of short, sexy stories designed to turn you on. It's so fucking good. It's so good. Each Dipsea audio stories features characters that feel like real people and immersive scenarios, so you feel like you're right there. You can listen to stories about hooking up with your hometown crush or group sex, or I don't know, maybe experience a gender that you've never hooked up with. They release new content every week. There's always more to explore, no matter who or what turns you on. And if you need to wind down, Dipsea also has wellness sessions, sensual bedtime stories, and soundscapes to help you relax before you drift off. This week, you guys, do I have a Dipsea story for you? I was listening to my Dipsea, and Ben happened to crawl into bed with me while that was taking place. And I was all horny. And I started masturbating with a toy. And I still had my headphones in. And then he was like, just like holding me and stuff as he does. And I was like petting his head, and we were like rubbing each other's bodies, and I was like listening to this story at the same time, and like he knew my headphones were on, and it was like so hot, and like, but he didn't know what the story was, and he didn't even ask. It was so hot. Like, I'll tell you what it was on patreon.com/howcome. But no, seriously, it was so hot. Really recommend doing that. Usually I'm just doing it alone. And yeah, this was a new experience, and I loved it. And if you guys do the same thing, please let me know and I'll congratulate you, because it felt like momentous for me. So fun. So for listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/howcome. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to dipseastories.com/howcome. All right, let's get back to the episode. This part is about to get so sexy you don't even know. And this is maybe jumping the gun, but I saw your picture where you have your Peg the Patriarchy shirt on, and you have a strap on your leg.
Oh, yeah.
Can you peg with a leg strap on?
Oh my God. Nobody has asked me this question, and I love it. Because that is actually one of my favorite strap-on pieces. It's made locally in Toronto by a queer leather maker and Unicorn Collaborators. I went to them years ago and I said, hey, I've seen some strap-ons for thighs out there, but they're ugly. I want something cute. And so they were like, we're going to make you a gold strap-on. And so it's actually called the Lunicorn. They named it after me. It's so cute. It's so cute.
That's amazing.
I love that.
And strap-on thigh harnesses are actually a lot easier to use than pelvic harnesses. So if you're not attached to kind of some people like pelvic harnesses because it's about gender expression, or they like the idea. It's about a cock. It's about, kind of having something in that area. But if you're looking to penetrate, thigh harnesses can sometimes give you more power than the thrusting, right? Because we're not used to using thrusting in that way. Yeah. You can also navigate bodies better. You can get closer to your person and kind of scissor between their legs with your strap on.
Yeah, we asked our companions for questions that they have about it. And one of the ones that was, how can the pegger best learn to thrust? Because that must be a huge, those are like new muscles that you're using and stuff. But then when I saw the thigh thing, I was like, wait, we know how to move our thigh up and down.
Yeah, you nailed it. And it is a skill. And I think people sometimes get into strapping it on and then they feel unconfident or unsexy because it takes practice. It takes practice to orient your body in that way and to feel like the strap-on is an extension of you to your partner. I teach a pegging class that's focused on anal strap-on play for anybody of any gender. And then I teach a strap-on class that includes anal strap-on play, but also vaginal or oral strap-on play. So if you want to do role play with those kinds of things. Like
oral strap-on, like strap-on.
Yeah, so some people like strapping it on and then giving head basically to the strap on. So okay. So they can feel like, sexy and submissive or worshiping, whatever the vibe is they're bringing in.
Yes. Okay, I was thinking like you strap a dildo to your head and do
oh my
it
God,
that
those
way.
exist too.
I know they do. Yeah.
That is not what I was.
I know that they do exist. Do you remember the first time you ever pegged somebody?
Yes, I do. And I knew nothing about it. I hadn't taken any classes. And this person brought over one of these like strap-on kits where it comes with like the dildo and the thing. And so, I'm a plus size person. So this also didn't fit me really well because those are usually designed for smaller bodies, right?
Right.
And this person was also new to pegging. And so he was kind of like, yeah, I want this big dildo. And I knew a little bit about anal play. And I was like, well, I don't think if you haven't played with your butt and I haven't played with your butt, this is probably not going to work out. And so there was this, his eyes were bigger than his butt. and I was I was unconfident. I didn't know what to do. So I didn't even actually end up getting the dildo in. I ended up, kind of giving the motion of thrusting with just my finger in his bum. So he got to feel like he's getting fucked or penetrated, but without the pressure or pain of not being ready for dildo. Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of L Word, and they haven't done any strap-on scenes yet. Like, this is my first time binging the old season. But what I do like is that they do use a lot of knees and hands and motion fucking, which maybe I haven't watched enough porn, but I'm like, oh my God, that's like an amazing way to go about like starting out. And like just hearing that you kind of like went that same route, but like anally.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can make whatever sexual activity you want carry the vibe or desire of your fantasy. So your sex stuff is just a vessel for whatever flavor.
Yeah. I also love his eyes were too big for his stomach, for his butthole.
They totally were. I was like, okay.
That's so fun. Yeah, but like you make it work. Like that's the thing. I think a lot of people are coming in with this idea of pegging is like, how do we do it? How do we make it fit? How do we, whatever. Yeah. And they have this idea of like just getting the dildo in the hole is like, okay, cool, we pegged. And it's like, no, pegging can be with your fingers. Pegging can be just the tip or whatever, like circling like around the drain.
Yes.
Okay, so stolen art, the mentions were skyrocketing on social media. Has she reached out to you at all? Because everybody's been tagging you and stuff.
No.
Okay.
I think this is kind of what a lot of times we see when BIPOC stuff is stolen, that the bigger brands can afford to wait it out. And they don't actually have to respond. They don't have to be accountable. They would have to choose that. They would have to choose to want to walk in this world in a different way and have to say that. But there's really no, I mean, I love people being like, sue them. I'm like, I'm just a small crafter. Like, how am I going to sue Dior? Yeah.
Right. Maybe Dior doesn't want to acknowledge that they stole it. Like, if I were Cara and I found out that my designer had stolen from a BIPOC creator, like I'd be like, oh, well then let's give her due.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be a good
like
approach.
It feels like very anti this message to not do so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like people who have Black Lives Matters up on their, which Cara does, up on their profiles, and like we're just performing kind of virtue signaling versus like actually showing up in the work.
Like it's so easy to just be like, oh, like I didn't know. I thought this was just an internet meme, but now that I know that it came from this creator, like we would love to give her some respect.
Yeah, yeah, and I think to your point too. I mean, these are teams and teams of people that put this outfit together. And so you can't tell me somebody didn't Google it. I own the domain. I owned all the mentions. I work really hard to keep my brand SEO strong. So there's no way that you wouldn't have known had you done a Google search.
Right.
And even after, I think like even if we're discussing before, but if we're looking after, there was still time to show up and do better. And that window's slowly closing.
Totally. That's the other thing is like once there is the call out, okay, cool. Then do a good job. But now they haven't.
Yes.
A shame, Ashonda. We hate to see it. What was the first thing that you did to like reach out to their camp? Or were you just like letting the internet do it?
Well, I didn't realize how much the internet was going to show up and do the thing that they do so well.
Yeah.
I immediately, I mean, I kind of knew it was a little bit of a long shot because Cara's platform is so big, but I DM'd her. And then I tried to look for contact information for so many different kinds of things connected to this. So the Dior designer or Laura DiCarlo. And then I started to notice the noise like happening more and more. And it really isn't a me versus them thing. I mean, this is just about like, do what's right, like do what's ethical. I shouldn't be put in a position where I have to consider legal action that I can't afford as a small business. And, so there was just sort of the ethics about it. So when I kind of realized that piece, I thought I need to do something different. I need to show up for my audience. Like this is like overtly wrong. And I just wanted to show up in the support that was coming to me. So that's when I put up my own post and wanted to tell my own story about Peg the Patriarchy.
Yeah, I think it's a way better description than Cara's take.
Yeah.
And can we talk about your sexual orientation? How do you identify?
Yeah, I usually identify as queer, and so I'm pansexual. So gender doesn't really matter to me. Yeah, and I think I discovered my queerness later in life. Like I grew up in the same heteronormative society that we all did, and I didn't have the kinds of cultural and social queer icons that we have now, which is so amazing. So it's been cool to watch, spaces for baby queers and, like all of us connecting in solidarity around this shared identity, and to see us take up so much more space, which is fantastic.
When was it that you ended up coming out?
So I mean, I always knew I had desires for other genders, but I felt like most people do, that like, sort of heterosexual relationships are what was normal for us. And, I was married monogamously to a cis man for about 9 years. And after I came out, I went on what I call my year of fuckery. And I was like, I'm going to fuck everybody. I don't know. Maybe I like that. Maybe I like this. And, that was also the start of me wanting to fall in love with myself. And so all parts of myself. And I set out on this journey to kind of discover myself. So it was a few years ago or more than a few years ago now, but it was also at a time where I was more emotionally mature to kind of deal with the tensions that come up inside yourself with like, what's my family going to think? And what are my friends going to think? And what does this mean? All these kinds of things. So I feel much more like I belong in my queerness now.
Yeah. And how did your family and friends respond?
Oh, they're all lovely. I mean,
amazing.
Right? Like they're just amazing people. I've got a good circle.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure that you've played with all genders now and experienced anal with multiple, right?
Yeah. Anal's so great because I mean, everybody has a butthole, and on my podcast, which is sponsored by V-Vibe, I host the Plug podcast, and I'm sorry, I'm lying on the floor.
I love it so much.
I get to talk about like my anal experiences with all of our guests, and sometimes when you think something is really wild, you're like, oh no, that's not wild. Or when you think something's really mild, you talk with someone else and it's not as mild. And so having these space for conversations is so cool. It's so cool to talk about my own experiences and to also kind of talk about other people's. But I tend not to center my own sexual experiences because it's not about me. It's really, I'm a facilitator, and I'm not really, I mean, I talk about my experiences when they're relatable. So when I've experienced shame, when I've experienced performance anxiety, when I've experienced rejection. But I'm not the best at sex, and that's not the point of like gaining skills in sex. And so I think it's important for people to know that those of us who are in sexual fields or sexual work, that we're
not that good at sex, you guys.
Our sexual confidence doesn't come from having a lot of sex.
Just because we I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that.
Don't assume we're all amazing at sex. We're not. I'm just kidding. Yeah. We're great at it, you guys. But also, no, I love that it's more focused on other people's stories and like, shared experiences. And that's why I do think like anal is the great unifier, because like we do all have buttholes and we like can all legitimately understand the same experience with or without a prostate. So maybe it is a little different, but like, that's the most that you can understand everybody else's sex. Anal. Yeah, exactly. And that it's so much more, even being a cis woman, I think people just assume that I'm always receiving anal, or they kind of make assumptions about it, or what kinds of things I like. And, anal's not just penetrative. You can have anal sex and it can be external. We can eat assholes, we can put vibrators on things. And so, getting to talk about these sex acts outside of such a limited definition of things is so liberating. It's so liberating for my own sex life and for the people I get to teach. I love it. And I love that you're doing this work because it's so important. And I mean, it is really sucky that this all happened, but like,
at the same time, like, now we know you.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I feel like there's been so many new people coming into my sphere, and I'm like, oh my God, look at how many of us there are and how many cool things people are doing. And I get to lift other people up, which is such an important part of my work too, is to use, my small platform to lift up other creators and people who are just getting started. And yeah, that's how I want to move in this
and also
space,
probably there's a solidarity, I think, in our community of it's like, yeah, like a lot of us have had our stuff ripped off or like been able to see these other creators that like have what Robin was saying, where they can just get past all this stuff and post all this shit. And we're like, oh, we've really been trying to educate for such a long time. And like, we're feeling like the same plight. And so like, it's nice to get to know each other in this way.
Yes. And see each other as humans. I think we forget that there's like people behind the screens, and it's hard to stay emotionally healthy when you're kind of obligated or that you're providing something to an audience. It's hard to have boundaries, and that's part of, I got to like drink my own medicine. Like I'm teaching consent, I'm teaching communication and boundaries, and it's important for me to uphold too.
And it just teaches us how to like go forward in our own spaces too. Like I've seen stuff that I'm like, oh, we should repeat that. And it's like, yeah, but repeat it and give credit to the person, because like, how that feels when your credit is taken. And it means so much when it's given, and nobody's going to be like, oh my God, they're less smart for not having come up with that themselves. It's like, no, you're smart for recognizing that was a cool thing to say.
Yes, that's totally it. Like, I think I've seen people talk about various understandings of trademark and these kinds of things. And I think the reality is that whenever I come up with a new design, I know right away that likely a white woman with a bigger platform is going to steal it from me. And so this is just throughout the years of developing different brands. And not all of us have the resources or ability to trademark things. So Peg the Patriarchy is my only trademark brand out of the other brands that I have. Meditate, Medicate, Masturbate. I released it and immediately giant stoner kind of accounts like took it, changed it, and then I can't keep up with that. So that's just out
and
there.
What about Fuck Like a Goddess?
I think Fuck Like a God also was stolen. This woman, a white woman, who's also privileged, she wrote a book called Fuck Like a Goddess years after I had it. And I hadn't trademarked it. I owned the domain and I had the products and all the language around it, but she had a whole big old PR team behind her. So it's different. And I don't mean to position myself as a victim. I definitely have lots of resources that are within my scale of capacity, but it sucks. Yeah, it sucks.
Well, I'm sorry for us.
Yeah, it sucks.
Sorry for those women.
Well, I think it's more of like behaviors, right? Like, like it's like they're acting in behaviors that we just need to leave this kind of appropriation bullshit behind. Like you said, like it's not hard. It doesn't take anything from you to lift other people up. It actually gives you community.
Yeah, Luna, this is it's so wonderful getting to talk to you and actually hear how you feel about the phrase, because it's the same way that I think it should be interpreted. And I'm so happy to hear that you're actually educating people and like just using all your experience to do amazing things. So can you tell everybody where they can find you and maybe some of your classes and your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and for also being allied in this work in like a sex-based business. And you can find me at lunamattatas.com. So I've got over 30 on-demand webinars, like everything from sexual communication to confidence to kink to threesomes, butt stuff. And I'm hosting the Plug podcast by Vibe, which you can find wherever you listen to podcasts. We just released season 2, and there's 3 episodes around anal, like pot, porn, like pelvic floor, so many good things. And on my website, you'll also find, or if you can go to pegthepatriarchy.com and it'll direct you to my site.
Oh my God. At least you have the website. TG.
Since 2016, Dior.
And on social?
On social, I'm Luna Mattatas everywhere. So YouTube, I'm on TikTok, but there's only one picture or one video of my cat. That's it. So I'm more active on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm going to go check out that cat.
He's so cute. You're gonna like it because he looks hotbox. I think I hotboxed him. I don't know.
Amazing.
Yeah, Bubba.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. Yeah. Cats, weed, and fucking. That's it. All day.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a great way to close. Yeah.
Luna, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I do have to ask you after a sexual experience when I have to ask everybody this. Luna, did you finish?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm so happy.
I finished pretty good. I finished on the floor.
Oh,
yeah.
Wonderful. And she's relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I love somebody laying from the floor. It's like, I think we're soulmates.
Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hello. How great was Luna? That was so cool that we got to talk to her about her perspective. I would love to hear all of your perspectives about Peg the Patriarchy, how you read it the first time. I know a lot of you already DM me, but like keep them coming because, yeah, everyone's perspective is so interesting. There's one perspective on the internet I do not love this week. I hate to be this person to bring this up, but we got like the worst review ever. I'm not talking about like the we need more sex. That one's valid. You're so nice and so great. But we got one that made me so sad. So please, if you haven't reviewed yet, will you please do that and do it 5 stars? We are at 4.8 stars now. We used to be at 5 for like 4 years, and now this. I'm still gonna try and do better, you guys, but yeah, oh man, that made me so sad. Thank God I have BetterHelp. I love BetterHelp. Most days when I spiral, I just go on betterhelp.com instead, and then I feel better, and that's so good. So thank you, BetterHelp. Is there anything that is making you spiral these days? Is it making you unhappy or preventing you from achieving your goals? BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist, and you can contact them in a safe and private environment online, so it's super convenient. You can start communicating in under 48 hours, all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room or take a cab. And your therapist doesn't have to take a cab either. It's great. You can both just be at home, being cozy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. I haven't needed to. I love Monica. And BetterHelp is more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available, which is amazing because a lot of times you don't want to do therapy because it costs too much. BetterHelp is a reason to be like, no, it's worth it. And it is. It's available for clients worldwide, and it offers a broad range of expertise, which may not be locally available in many areas, or like you might not even know how to seek it out. BetterHelp is so convenient. It's so professional. It's so affordable. You get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions and send messages to your counselor anytime. I told you guys, I think I've had 2 video sessions with Monica. Otherwise we just text, and it's so great. And you can check out the testimonials that are posted on their site daily. They have licensed professional counselors who are specialized in so many different areas. So if you're like, I strictly want somebody for depression, or I need someone for self-esteem, I'm having trouble with my gender identity, or family conflicts, they've got everything. Sleeping, trauma, everything. I love being able to have no schedule. I hate therapy, but every time I've done therapy before BetterHelp, I've just been like, oh, what a chore. And it's really just so easy with this. You can just write in your journal some days. Some days it'll be like, do you want to share this with your counselor? And you'll be like, sure. And then your counselor responds and you're like, that was really good intel, Monica. And she's like, no worries, I'm here for you. And then you talk to her more. Whereas usually I don't know. I would bring up one thing and then like not like the person's response, and it would be like a whole hour and you'd have to pay so much for it, and it's just so much more affordable, and I feel so much better about myself and therapy in general. And yeah, highly recommend it to anybody who wants to start living a happier life today. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/howcome. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. That is betterhelp.com/howcome for 10% off your first month. Thank you, BetterHelp. All right, let's talk to Lola Jean now. She was the instructor at the masturbation class that I went to in assignment 5. You might remember from season 1, episode 5. She is amazing. Teaches lots of classes. We'll update you with what she is doing now. And Brian, who he just responded to, she had to write an article on prostate something. Anyway, he responded and he was like, I'll do that article. And she's like, okay, do you also want to do a podcast? And so now he's here and we loved talking to him. So enjoy this half of the episode. Yeah, love you. Goodbye.
Here she is, Miss Anal America.
Welcome back, Lola Jean. We're so happy to have you.
Has it been since season 1? Man, what a turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, we did the live show, so that's last time we saw you in person. Patreon, it has access to that, but nobody else has seen you since season 1.
Yeah. Oh my God. You can't see that I'm in my underwear, right?
I saw a suggestion of underwear, but look at this.
Yeah, I just wear basically men's boxers now. Exclusively.
Yeah, it's the best. Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Lola has graciously introduced us to Brian. Hello, Brian. Welcome.
Hey, what's up?
Thank you so much for doing this last minute.
Yeah, sorry, I'm all sweaty.
Oh my God, no worries. I feel like we're all wet right now. Like you're sweating. I just showered. Lola, I assume showered.
I did.
Robin, are you wet right now?
I was actually just out in the rain. So
Perfect.
this is great.
And also
At the Met Gala, it seemed one of the themes was everybody is wet. Did you notice that?
Like physically?
Like their hair.
Oh.
Like Cara DeLevigne's hair was like very like, I just got out of the shower.
Oh yeah, it was all like slicked down, wasn't it?
I like it.
I want
I
to
think
know
it's
how
a
to do
vibe.
that. Whenever I do with curly hair, it works. It's so bad.
Yeah.
When I was last on though, that first time between where you've gone, where I've gone, holy hell.
Yeah, look at how far we've come.
How far we have come.
Isn't that your thing?
It is her thing. It's literally how far she can come.
I am now officially the world record holder in volume squirting.
Damn.
And yeah, I'm just educating a lot online. I'm doing live events. The next one is like in just about a week. It's the Cirque du Squirt. And it's just going to be a really mess up carnival of my nightmares and dreams combined.
American Horror Story.
But I have a bunch of like video classes now on squirting, pegging, choking just came out. Wrestling is coming out, as well as a series called The 7 Days of Domination for anyone who's either dabbling in BDSM or professionals as well.
So fun. Such a perfect time. Brian,
Hey.
I'm so happy to have you here. So excited to talk about pegging with you. And you have been pegged before.
I have many times, weekly in fact.
By our very own Lola Jean?
Oh, no, not sadly.
Sadly, no. Okay, just others.
Yes, well, just one person in fact. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And how did you get started in pegging?
How much time do we have?
The most?
I mean, I think, it's funny. It truly has been like a really long sort of path. I mean, I was, of course, when she texted me today, it was like, hey, can you do this podcast right now? And I was like, I can't. But of course, while I was out on a bike ride. So while I was riding, I was sort of thinking about, like how I got here. And I think it really was, probably pretty typical how I got to like playing with my ass just in college. My then soon-to-be fiance, now ex-wife, was not home. I was playing with her vibrator, just kind of like using it, sort of just underneath my balls. Like, oh, this feels great. And then just was like, oh, this keeps feeling great. As it got closer to my ass, and like, next thing you know, it's like halfway in my ass and I'm coming.
Yeah, amazing.
So it's like, well, all right,
there's something going on here that I'm really enjoying.
I'm hoping that this vibrator was at least a little bit large. I was like initially picturing a bullet, and then I was like, he's gonna lose that.
Oh no, it was, of course, like, I mean, this was the early 2000s, right? So it was one of those gross, like, jelly, like cocks with like the dial on it to make it vibrate more.
Okay.
Yeah. It was when she had sort of like, I was like, she didn't want to use it anymore. It was just like in a closet, and I'm like, well, if no one else is using this. Which of course, like, I was already super into like anal porn, like high heterosexual guy, right?
Cool.
And I think for me, what the ultimate thing was, the woman that I was married to, she was not into it at all. So like, we'd always be playing, and I would always be like basically begging her to just put anything in my ass. She never was. So it turned into a very like self-exploratory thing. So I started, going to sex shops, looking at toys, finding toys that appealed to me. And fast forward through getting divorced and just being a crazy masturbator for a while. I met my current partner, who was also super into anal stuff, and we pretty quickly established a very strong like BDSM dynamic. Realized we were both very interested in trying out pegging, and so we started very gently. There was just a lot of like fingers and small toys at first, and now we're using just absolutely gigantic cocks and
unreal.
But
as a straight identifying guy, like, was there anything weird ever about the shape of dicks?
No, well, I think straight identifying probably doesn't actually describe me accurately.
Okay.
I think I've only ever like made out with guys, but I absolutely don't feel like I'm a straight person. I think I texted Lola, like, I use the Dan Savage hetero flexible, because I think I'm in the situation where like I think I'm like hetero romantic,
Yeah.
But like, it's funny, when I first sort of was interested in pegging, I was looking up, a lot of porn about it. And I really hate most professional pegging porn. Most of it's terrible. But I remember early days being really confused about like some of the guys that would like give a blowjob to the lady wearing a strap on. I was like, what's the appeal of that? And now like I basically can only come if there's a cock shoved down my throat.
Wow.
Do you like ass to mouth?
I love it.
Why do you like it?
Well, I mean, so I do extensive cleaning out before dates. So it's like, it's not actually filthy. But I think there's sort of like, there's that whole taboo surrounding it, like, I think before I started like practicing anal sex as a receiver, there absolutely is this projection of like, oh my God, ass to mouth is so disgusting. And look how nasty that actress is, right? But of course, now that I know, it's like, oh, it's actually like completely clean and it's not filthy at all. But I think something about that like taboo culture about it like feels nasty. So I mean,
totally. There's something about like removing it and then putting it back in, but like, we talk about ass eating all the time. Like this is just like, there's a little middleman.
Right.
And you're eating your own ass, like, which, like, when do you get to do that unless you're like a contortionist?
Right. Well, and I think, and for our, my partner and I, for our dynamic, it also adds like great opportunities for like, consensual name calling. Like I get to be a filthy whore when I'm begging for her to like take the cock out of my ass and put it in my mouth, and that's great. So
amazing.
It's pretty awesome,
I love it.
So this is something. I think the term pegging is very hotly debated for how it's defined. So actually similar to the term heteroflexible, another callback to Dan Savage, that was who coined the term pegging, and it was off of a vote. And this term was coined at a time where I think we defined sex and sexuality as much more binary. We didn't have a lot more of this language. We didn't have a lot of questioning. I think non-binary and trans was not more in our general vernacular as it is now. So then when it was coined, it really, I think, meant like cis women take strap on, puts it into a cis man's butt. However, I think that we can use this term to more just talk about like a strap on going into someone anally. So whether it doesn't really matter what genitals either person has, as long as there is a strap on that is going into a butt. That is how I see pegging. However, it's just anal sex with a strap on. So sometimes for people, if they have a strap on, maybe that's part of their gender identity. And it's not really a strap-on. It's just part of their body, and they may not want to refer to it as this. So it's kind of...
That's what I would say is like there must be like a line in between, like, because like obviously all sex is valid sex, but when it comes to somebody's gender identity, it's like, you know, they might want to just call it sex and not pegging.
Yeah, or strap-on sex, or, you know, butt fucking or whatever. And I think like there's a thought that it's more rooted in transphobia and homophobia, because a lot of it is like straight men's desires, because it is so subversive, and basically thinking that, oh, it's okay because it's not a like quote in quotes like a real dick. Yeah, which can be really like I mean offensing and just like not affirming at all to someone of their gender.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's not like it's, but then again, it has nothing to do with someone's sexuality of the sex acts that you enjoy. It's attraction.
Totally.
I remember a long time ago, I used to get GQ as like a regular thing. And there was an interview with Tom Ford, and he was basically saying that his philosophy in life is that every single human being ought to get penetrated at least once, just to feel what it's like to be on the other end of that. Right. And even though like in my personal relationship are, for a variety of reasons, mostly pandemic induced, the amount of power, like active power exchange play we're doing has lessened, but there's absolutely like a feeling of like you're giving up your control of your body, right? When you're holding your legs open and someone is like plowing you, right?
Yeah, totally.
And whether that's feminist or not, you know, again, I think boils down to like how much gender play goes into it.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's subjective if you think pegging is feminist. I don't think that, I mean, there's a lot of white feminism, but I think what it is that the patriarchy says sex is a certain way and life is a certain way, and here are the roles that you're supposed to play. And pegging someone is completely subverting that. So it's kind of more just like a middle finger to the patriarchy, no matter what position you're in. But even within pegging, like it doesn't, just because you're being penetrated does not mean that you are just taking it. And that like, even though you're the receiver, because as we know, people with vaginas can be penetrated and they're in total control, or they are dominant or anything like that.
Yeah, totally. No, there was this tweet though that I read that was like, sorry, still losing my mind about peg the patriarchy. Genuinely, how else could you read that besides the patriarchy is deserving of pleasure, or being penetrated is an inherently demeaning act, the latter of which, in my opinion, makes it read like a pseudo rape threat.
I think a lot of people are reading it that way. And like, I mean, what I try to do with my work is I try to make things that like society thinks is like gross or demeaning or whatever. So things like submission, or things like being penetrated anally, if you're an AMAB person. And I just try to make it look so enticing and wonderful and incredible that like you want to go to that party. And like, that's what I want to, when it comes to like peg the patriarchy, when you're able to do that, then someone's basically rebuking the patriarchy if they're to engage in pegging. And I think it can start to unravel a lot of things, like maybe other things I've been told are a lie too. If I enjoy this thing that was supposed to make me feel emasculated, but instead I just had an orgasm. But I don't think it's like, I don't think it's inherently rapey, but also like so many things with catchphrasy things, we're not going to get the context of consent, and our society and culture doesn't even understand consent anyway. But I think it's more so interesting that people assume by reading that it's a violent threat to the patriarchy and not like a hand holding.
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't be hand holding the patriarchy either, I guess.
Right. I mean, it can go.
I mean, no matter what the goal is, we're talking about it more than ever. This is kind of like when Foss Assessa came about, and it's like, well, at least we're talking about sex work more than we ever were before. So I think ultimately it's going to help, you know, I mean, Broad City was the first jump, and then Cara DeLevigne's like, you know, stolen chest plate is the second.
Yeah.
Although, you know, do you guys remember the Jim Carrey movie, Me, Myself, and Irene?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a scene in that, and that's like what, from like the late 90s, where when he's like had a night where he flipped who he was, and he's getting up in the morning and he's peeing and he's wondering why his pee is going everywhere because he was fucking all night, and he absolutely pulls a huge dildo out of his ass.
Amazing.
In that very, very mainstream movie. And I like why, I mean, obviously there's a reason that I remember this specifically, but like that was, I think, as like a very impressionable like high school kid, that was absolutely like a mainstream media moment where I was like, oh, guys can put things in their butts.
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna say we missed Deadpool too, because Deadpool has an amazing pegging scene, and it's like Ryan Reynolds who is like. Is the patriarchy? No.
I mean, he can fuck me, right?
Like, I'm pretty sure he got married on a plantation. So to see him get pegged, love to see it.
Love to see it.
But yeah, let's more talk about the mechanics.
Yes.
How do we begin for beginners?
Well, I think firstly, like no matter what, pegging or anal sex in general is a great empathy builder, especially for people with penises, because now you understand what it is like for someone to enter your orifice.
Yes,
and what it's like
your
when
hole.
And what it's like when someone enters it when you're not ready.
Yes.
So I mean, in general, like a lot of what I talk about for like pegging techniques can be used for anal for anybody. It's just that prostates are kind of easier because they're pretty cut and dry. So the first big tip that you will not hear, because when you think of pegging, you just think dildo and butt, is use your hands. So using your hands, and ideally a gloved hand, because it's hot, it's clean, it's easy cleanup, with a lot of lube. But you use your hands, and what this does is this helps you and your partner both like tactily feel where the prostate is. And now you have that understanding when you go in with a dildo that it's not, physically you cannot feel where the dildo is going inside of them. Plus, when you put your hands in first, you're likely to get the prostate a little bit engorged, which will make it easier to hit when you enter them.
Which is why if you're a clit owner, you would massage a clit so that the inside clit could engorge in that same way and enjoy the time. So wait, and when you're looking for a prostate, it is like how far in?
So it's about 2 inches, and I was just writing an article for the UK, so it'd be like 5 centimeters.
Yeah,
that
makes sense. But going metric. Yeah.
But the important thing to remember is that you're going towards the genitals. So whether someone's like face up, face down, just remember that you want to curve towards the genitals. And it's going to vary a little bit person to person, depending on how long someone's torso is, but they can always like shorten that by either cat or cowing their back, if they want more pressure, less pressure, or if they have a shorter torso. But I recommend, use the middle finger because it's your longest finger. Don't just shove it in there. That goes for dildos or fingers. Yeah. You want to do this very slowly. So I like to start with an anal massage, and then I'll same thing for vaginas, put the very tip in and just leave it there. And then slowly let it go in based on the person's muscles. Same thing for a vagina as it would be for the anal cavity, because your pelvic floor controls both. And that's what they're doing, is they're elongating and contracting the pelvic floor, which will bring a finger or a dildo in. Or if they're not aware of their pelvic floor, you can take a deep breath in together. And when they take a breath out is when you can push in a little bit more.
Okay, so great. And then, Brian, question to you. Yeah. When you are preparing, first of all, was the first finger in your ass your own?
It was.
Yeah. So then the first time that you had somebody else's, do you remember the position that you were in?
Yeah, it was just on my back getting a blowjob.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. That sounds like an amazing starter position to me.
Yeah, it
Lola's
is.
Nodding.
I think, yes, absolutely. And I think, and even now, my partner often, lazy slut is usually the thing hurled at me, because I just love being on my back, just taking it. But also, she gets tired. She gets tired. So sometimes I'll get on top too. We have a bench at the end of my bed. So a lot of times I'll put my feet on the bench and hang on to her, which is super fun.
Wait, where is she
She's sitting on the bench, and I've got my feet outside of her legs, and I've got my hands on her shoulders.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Great for torque.
Yes, yeah. But no, I think on your back, and doing it yourself, I actually think it's easier to access everything if you're on your hands and knees. like reaching around behind it's a little more accessible, but because sometimes on your back, you gotta like get under your leg.
Yeah.
You're like I'm pretty athletic, I'm flexible, it's fine for me, but I'm not sure that that's the most like that. I feel like that's a little ableist. I don't know. Like I can do that, but I'm not sure that
Everyone's got
can.
their own like different positions, I'm sure, but I think just from like, I mean, what I've heard from blowjobs is that they're great. And so I think that sounds like a fun position. But yeah, on your side.
The thing with being on your side is if you want to be like stroking your cock while having anal stuff happen, on your side is a little weird because your legs are in the way.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have that problem, so I didn't know about that. I'm glad we covered
Right.
this. Most of the best answers come from the stupidest questions.
You want like the cheeks to be a little bit like open. I feel like if you're on your side, you got to like dig in there a little bit.
Yeah.
Which,
And
like,
also it like limits how deep you can go, which in some cases might be a good thing. We've definitely one of the things that we've discovered is that if I'm on hands and knees and she is too high above me, like I don't know what part of my internal organs it's hitting, but it is bad news. I do not like it. Like it's not so much that it hurts. It's just like, oh no, that's too.
It's like uncomfortable.
It feels too deep. It's uncomfortable. But if her body is like, if her center is lower than my hands and knees, everything's fine.
Cool. So, yeah, and that's probably something that you just like learn with practice.
Yes, absolutely.
And good consent and her being like open to stopping.
Right. Well, it's sort of what you were saying before about sort of like all anal play is so good for like increasing your intimacy and like learning your communication skills. It's just like yes, lots of lube. And to the lube thing, can I add something to the lube discussion? Okay. So we went through so many different varieties of lube. For her, she really loves just 100% good silicone lube when she's getting her ass played with. I really love fist powder, which you can get at Mr. Ass Leather. It's like, I think it's just maltodextrin, really. It's food. And it comes in a powder and you have to mix it up yourself with hot water. So you can control how thick or thin it is, which is fun. But it's body safe. You can eat it because it's made of food stuff.
Okay.
And I really like it. The issue with it is that like I make like 8 ounces of it and it's got like a 24-hour shelf life. And so you use what you use that night and then you clean it. So I bought these little like silicone, like travel lotion bottles on the internet. And so I just like mix it up in like a measuring cup, pour it in that. And now I've got my lube.
Cool.
But
can't travel with it though. 4 ounces.
Can't travel with it. No, but it's in it. But the little thing of powder, you could absolutely travel with.
Totally. Cool.
Right.
Actually,
like
that's probably better than traveling with lube.
Right.
Most lube
and it's great because we use because I mean all of the cocks worth purchasing are made of silicone, right? And so so you need a silicone safe lube unless you're going to put condoms on your toys, which is we're not doing that because we're not doing that. Having a water-based lube is the best thing for us. But we went through many different permutations of what lube we were using, and the fist powder is great.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Lola, in for toys, like, would you recommend starting with one that is attached to your body, starting with one that is not attached to your body? Like, does it matter?
Like using your hand to put the dildo in?
Like if you're with a partner, obviously.
Oh, wear a harness. Absolutely. I like the ones that either look like rock climbing harnesses that are made of neoprene or the ones that, I believe it's by Spare Parts that kind of look like boy shorts or like, just kind of boxers. And those are still adjustable as well. And I think those are the best because they're the most comfortable. My first harness was made of leather and that was just impractical because it was not comfy. You might want to put it over, your clothing or maybe you're bloated that day, but I find these are the most accommodating for all sizes. And then one of the big key things that no one talks about is placement of the harness. So many times I've seen people when they put like the dildo in the harness, they try to put it near like their vaginal opening. which because they're like, I'm going to put the genital where my genital
is.
Yeah. But that's so low. It's going to make your range of motion just like crazy. So it should really actually place higher, kind of like just above the clitoris, because then it's going to also rub like on your mons. So you get a little bit more action as well. And then also shorter range of motion makes it easier too.
Okay, wait, I might have a very dumb question. The dildos that you're using in the harness, are those just like a standard dildo? Like, is that like the same as a dildo that you would buy for not a harness?
Yeah, I mean, any dildo that is safe to go into the body is safe to go into multiple parts of the body and orifices. For pegging specifically, I look for things. Can I actually grab one that's right?
Hell
here?
Yeah.
I'll show. This is one of my.
Do you want me to go get ours too in the harness?
Boy, do I.
Okay, hey, I'll be right back.
One of the best things that I look for is I like a really wide flared base, and this one's awesome because what the wide flared base does is it means that my dildo isn't going to pop out and get stuck in my partner without me realizing it. That happens more often than you would think. This one is also great because you want it to be at least like 6 inches. It doesn't mean you have to use all of it, but you want it to be long enough to hit the prostate. Okay. Usually it's going to be the girth that you feel and not the length. So don't be scared of the length, but something that's like thinner. This is also great too, because like you can put a vibrator in the back of it. So you get a bit of vibration.
It's got a little hole.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
So great. This is one of my favorite ones, but like I have a few different ones that I like to use for pegging. And, I like things with a curve because that can kind of curve and hook into the prostate better, but you want to flip that like 180 degrees, depending if the person is face up or face down. There's so many different ones. It kind of just depends on the person's butt. But generally, if you are like very nervous and you are worried it's going to hurt, then just get a thinner dildo, not a shorter one, a thinner one. Because if you get a very short one, that's just going to pop out all the time. And you're going to just be like poking at their butt cheeks and it's going to hurt.
Yeah. And then you won't get the end result that you even want because it won't go up high enough.
Yeah. Or down.
Right.
Pain and poop are the two things that people are most worried about when doing any kind of anal play. And, I hear a lot of like, oh, exit door only, like when it comes to your butthole. Because, that's what we associate our butthole with, which a lot of people are just ashamed of poop, not even talking about anal sex. People cannot talk about poop. So it's
I've got people engaged to people that they won't fart in front of. Like, that's crazy to me.
But yeah, I think it's more, that's why, like when I've engaged with a lot of people where I've been the first person who's penetrated them with a finger or a toy. And I always tell them, because they're so nervous of when am I going to put it in? When am I going to put it in? And I'm always like, I will never penetrate you without like giving you explicit detail beforehand. Like I am going to talk this to death so you know everything that's going on. And that's why we start with hand things before dildo. And I'm like, I'm not going to put anything inside of you without telling you first. And then I don't do that. So they trust me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't abuse that trust either, which.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it's funny because like someone that I'm seeing when we were like, I think first having sex for the first time. And I think he was just like, oh, I just figured you were going to try to put something in my butt or peg me. And I'm like, we've literally never talked about that. Like, I'm not going to just.
Works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, what were your first conversations like when you were asking for it?
Well, so.
I know with your ex-wife, it was not positive.
Right. Yeah. No, it was with my current partner, it was sort of, brief context, she's in a consensual non-monogamous situation, so I'm the not partner. That I don't live with her other partner does.
Cool.
There's a lot of like picture sending and like, because we only see each other once a week, so that's sort of context. So she had sent me to a sex store to pick out a new toy. And I had sort of two, and I was like, oh, this one says it's harness compatible. And she was just like, what? Huh? Oh, is that something we're talking about? Right. And so I I kind of shot my shot there, right? It was something I
Cool.
was extremely interested in. I knew I was safe in sort of throwing that out there. Ended up not buying that one in that moment, but then went back like the next day. Got it.
Cool.
But yeah, but I think, you know, it's funny, those early toys, which we don't have anymore, we had to do a whole sex toy clean out. It's very sad there's not a way to like safely donate sex toys to willing people, because I had to throw away a lot of toys. They're just like weren't big enough anymore. But sort of what happened, right? Something that happened for us though is that, you know, a lot of like anal specific toys are colored. Like the one Lola just put up was pink, right? And like does not look like anatomic at all. I think, I mean, I suspect there's some patriarchy involved in that too, right? Like if they're making like anal toys meant for use in pegging, they don't want to like scare the straight guys away by making it look like a cock, right?
I will say though, as a person who likes fucking people with penises, I don't like dick shaped or looking stuff. Like
interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it could just be like, I don't know.
I was going to say, I mean, also too, because there's all different kinds of skin tone. I think some people can see it as like a fetishization. If you were a not black person and you bought a black penis, right, as well. So there's a lot of different things with that.
Sure.
Or like, if you're like worried about matching your skin tone, like, you know, when you like don't want like an outfit that's just like slightly off. So you're like, let's pattern clash. Like that's when the pink dildo comes in.
I know. Well, I'm worried I'm doing too much product plugging. We got really enamored with Vixen toys, and every toy they make in many skin tones. And so we actually like found ones that perfectly match her skin color, which is kind of
unreal.
And also I think because so much of our playing there is like gender role reversal going on, it very much is like once she's wearing her harness and wearing the cock, like it is now her cock, right? And like she wants it referred to that way, and that's but that's like a very specific aspect of our play, right? But I think knowing what kind of toys you're going to be using as the giver affects what kind of harness you can get. So like I brought some down, right? These ones have little fake balls on them, right?
Gorge.
But if you have a harness that has only 3 connectors, this one is pretty minimal. It is leather, that's what she's into, but it's got it comes in 4 different sides, so like it can attach to the ring around the fake balls. The one we had previously just had one that went straight up in the middle, and it was not compatible with these once we got these because the balls were like in the way.
Yeah.
But you know, most of the toys that are marketed as for pegging or pegging compatible do have a round base and are therefore compatible with whatever harness like attachment configuration you're going to be having. But I you know, we've spent a lot of money on harnesses and just figuring out like, oh, we've progressed to this next level of toy, and so now we're using these.
And those cocks you could play with yourself, like if she's away.
Could do often.
Yes.
Yes. Regularly. They're awesome.
Do you have any of those ones that stick to the wall?
Well, so there's another company called the New York Toy Collective, and they make the greatest double-sided suction cup on earth. So
any dildo can be a suction dildo.
That's right. It's the best thing. It's like $20. You don't need to get it wet. It just attaches. And as long as the bottom of your toy is a flat surface. And so like there's a mirror on the wall, like on the floor in my bedroom. And so it absolutely goes on the mirror. Huge top goes on the mirror. So that way I can get spit roasted without having to like invite another person into our room.
So fun. Oh my God.
And I can also watch it happening because it's a mirror. Yes. I mean, it really hits all the marks.
Oh my God. What a time to be alive.
What a time. And actually, you know, what I've found too, any of the toys that come with their own suction cup, I have had very low success rates with those.
Wait, say it again?
So like toys where the base is like a suction cup on its own.
Already.
I find that those don't work.
Interesting.
The New York Toy Collective one, and pretty much anything I own sticks to it, and it's awesome.
I think we should make like a master list of like best toys, and I think that should probably go on it.
Yes,
because the
everybody
enthusiasm
should.
that both of you were just like, yeah.
It's such a smart design. It's so smart. It's great.
Yeah, I love that. Hooray.
One of the questions that the companions asked was, how do you make sure that you don't hurt the person? Because they are very nervous of buttholes. I feel like keep asking along the way. What would you guys say?
I think asking a lot, and I don't think, and Lola, maybe your experience is different than mine. I think you shouldn't be asking someone to penetrate your ass if you haven't already done a significant amount of playing with your own ass. Like, you need to know what you can take, how things feel going in, like, because there are days where, like, I feel like I'm pretty experienced taking things in my butt. There are days where it's just not going to happen today. Like, my body's not into it, nothing feels right, but if you haven't played with your own hole, like, you don't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very beneficial to play with your own hole, but I don't think it's like necessary. And I think it also depends on level of experience. Like, I'm very experienced getting inside buttholes. So someone might be more comfortable with me than them trying to, contort in weird ways and get something in their own butt or do something unsafely. So I would say the main thing, because you don't want to also be annoying, like, are you okay? Am I hurting you? Am I hurting you for like the next 20 minutes?
Right.
Some of the important things are just like being able to feel and breathing together, because it's less of like, am I hurting you? And it's more of like, what feels good. And anytime I penetrate with something, of when I get my finger or dildo in, I'll sit there for a little bit and I'll just have them breathe. And because the breathing, soak. They're going to soak in it. They're
like
going
a
to
Mormon.
Marinate. That reminds me of that Eric Andre joke.
What is it?
They're soaking. They're just marinating in that pussy.
Yeah, but it's a real thing that Mormons do to like have sex.
Yeah, they just don't move.
They just put that in and they don't move. And then at some like Mormon universities, they'll even had somebody like jump on the bed so that the thrusts are like accidental.
Wow.
Yeah, that
we
way
gotta
God
get a
doesn't
Mormon
know.
on here. Yeah. God can't see that.
I'm sorry. Is it kink shaming to think that's incredibly weird?
Also, there's Mormon porn and it's kind of hot.
All right.
I think it's hot. Yeah, I think it's like a cool loophole. But yeah.
All right.
But also, I wish that they would just fuck. I don't know.
Yeah. I know a lot of defective Mormons, and it's really fun when they discover a lot of things for the first time, like weed and alcohol and other things.
Yeah. So we'll soak sometimes.
Yeah. So I'll just have them breathe and relax, because sometimes it feels like your heart's beating in your butthole, and that's a sign. And like for anybody who has a butthole, so no matter whatever you're packing, whatever kind of anal you're doing, that might happen. So you want to just sit there until that person is ready to move. But if you're very worried about hurting someone, just have that person move on your dildo. Or there's plenty of positions where if they're in like cow person, where they're on top and lowering themselves, then they're in more control, which can help people feel a lot better for their first time if they're worried of like someone hurting them or you're worried of hurting them. But there's a lot of things you can do that's not just asking, though communication's important as well.
Yeah.
I'm also like a huge fan of butt plugs. I think they're great.
Okay.
And often like, part of my kind of like pre-date ritual is like get home from work early, like clean my ass out, get a very large plug in there, and just kind of go about the rest of my day with the plug in. I don't know how appealing that is to all people, but, certainly like there's been a progression over the last, 4 years of like the plug I use now as like a daily driver is humongous, but it didn't start out that way. Right. And I think, there's just definitely something very, I don't know, like you can't not notice that there's a plug in your ass.
Yeah.
And I think it gets your brain really focused on like noticing what sensations your ass is feeling. You get very, tuned into it. So that way, when it comes out later, you're ready to get fucked.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. If this question is too crazy, just let me know. But when you're talking about the size of these things, I'm starting to worry about you. But I feel, I know I shouldn't, but like, I'm like, does the butt go back to like the normal size after? Like
Absolutely.
Poop's not falling out of your butt all day?
No, I mean, like,
Great.
it's the same, it's muscles, right? It's the same
Yeah.
thing where, like, you know, like, idiot dudes who are like, oh, my girlfriend cheats on me, her pussy's going to be loose, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how it works, right? I think what does happen, though, is that your body remembers, right? So, like, I don't need much warm-up anymore for my very large plug. Like, if I'm going to put it in, it's like, oh, right, I know exactly how big this thing is. I know what it takes to, you know, to get it in. So that they're kind of, you kind of like learn like physical compliance, I think.
I'm picturing, have you ever seen Totoro? Has anybody ever seen Totoro? Okay, Robin, this is just for you. So there's a cat bus in Totoro. It's like a Japanese animated movie. And
I have seen this.
okay, obviously there's a bus. It's a cat. And the cat, when it shows up, it's got like this door that lets people in or whatever. Like, and the door just like kind of opens or whatever. And it like lets people in and then it like closes right back up. That's how I feel about your butt right now.
All right. Well, you know, it's funny. So, again, this is almost guaranteed to be like mainstream porn's fault. I'm super annoyed and sad that I can't make my ass gape.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
You know, like I can take really large things, but like I can't do it.
Yeah.
My partner, on the other hand, like doesn't take her any effort at all, and it's just like, there it is, and it makes me very jealous. I know, I'm so annoyed about it.
Oh my God, another way to another way for us to feel like our bodies might be broken when that's just like how they're built.
It's just how they're built.
Yeah. But do you like to experience the gape when she's able to do it?
Love it. It's
great.
Amazing. And you know, and we have both fisted each other in all the places, which is also super fun and incredibly intense. And I highly recommend it for everybody.
I have a friend, and maybe I'll get him on one time, and maybe you guys have done this too. But he told me he went to see a client, and the client asked for him to fist him and then jack off his own dick in his ass. So he was holding his own dick, and then the fist and the dick went into the guy's ass, and he jacked himself off in the butthole.
Oh.
Isn't that wild?
I've seen this. It seems really wild, and maybe, I don't know. I'm not there. I can't do that.
Shoot for the moon.
If you want to talk about fisting, talk to Andre Shakti. And also next week, there's going to be a triple fisting at my event. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, it was her like fisting instructional video on kink that is what got both of us to be able to take each other's hands.
Oh my God. Congrats, all.
After I took her class, I was like, I didn't know that I wanted to be vaginally fisted, but now that's the only thing that I want in the world.
Unreal. And honestly, like, I know that we're getting into fisting territory, but I don't think that this is like a different subject. Like, I feel like all of these are like in the same wheelhouse. Like, if you think of pegging as just like dildo and butt, then you're probably not going to get to a very comfortable place of pegging because you're not starting out with hands. You're not starting out with like a ton of lube and stuff. You're not maybe like incorporating like your mouth, which like I'm sure a lot of people use their mouths to work up to pegging as well.
Yeah. And I mean, the main thing is that there's different draws to pegging as the receiver. You might like the feeling of like getting fucked. You might like the feeling of someone's pelvis driving into your butt, which you can also do without a dildo, and it's pretty fun. You might like the prostate stimulation, and that's what you're getting out of it. Or you might like this feeling of fullness. But if you're someone who's like, I need more and bigger and more, then like your butt will tell you. You will figure that out. But I would say most people fall into one of the first two categories. But like, you know, start not necessarily start small, but like start with a normal, like thinner, you know, medium sized one, and then figure out what you like from there.
And how when do you know it's time to do like douching prep or that kind of cleaning?
Yeah. I would say it depends on the person. It depends on the person and their relationship with their like GI system. It depends on your nervousness. Like if you're really nervous about that and that's a worry that you have, douche beforehand. It's not something you want to do super regularly because it's not great for your system if you do that. Yeah. However, I don't think most of the times that I have received anal has been surprise anal, which means I did not prepare for it. And it's more like a body to bowels check-in of like, no, I think we're good. But doing like when you peg, like sometimes poo happens. It's not like people are like, you know, projectile pooping on you or anything. But like that's where you're going.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, and when she says surprise anal, it means we didn't know we were doing it that day. Not I'm in your ass.
Yeah, this is true. Correct.
Yeah,
I have so many questions for these guys who are just like, oh my God, I'm fucking your ass now. Like, are you paying any attention to what you're doing?
No, the answer is no.
No.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. No. I think for me, you know, like cleaning out prior to dates, and again, like this is not your normal dating. Normal is such a bad word. It's not your average dating situation, right? Like our dates are on calendars, as all, you know,
open relationships
are, right? Like the calendar, the shared calendar is really the crown jewel of the relationship, right? But I think because there's this, you know, there's always a looking ahead towards the date. And so like for me, like the time spent cleaning out has become part of like the date ritual. Like every week there's always like, I always send her a picture of me like on my hands and knees in the bathroom with like the enema stuff in the background. And it's just like, it's become part of like date prep, you know?
That's cute.
And it's also like, you know, especially just getting away from like the noise of like your day and work and whatever. It's, you know, it's some time to just totally focus on like getting into your sexy brain. And even though like the act of cleaning out is not sexy at all, it's, you know, there's labor in there, and it's like, wow, you know, I spent this amount of time like getting my body ready to do what's going to be done tonight. And like, it very much helps me like center and get very focused on like shutting out the world and like,
it's a ritual.
We're having sexy time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And obviously you fisted her, but you penetrate her as well.
Yeah.
There's lots of, you guys do it all.
we really do.
Proud of you. Yeah. And we kind of already covered this, but how is it different than doing anal pegging?
I mean, it is anal. It's just anal with a strap
anal.
On. So the main thing is like, if you are wearing a strap on, then like you're not used to those kinds of movements and things could be exhausting. So there's different positions or things that you can do. So it's not, you don't have to penetrate in and out as well. You can penetrate up and down. And this is the same for vaginas because up and down's a lot of times going to be more pleasurable because we're hitting the fun spots. So you don't have to go in and out. You can go up and down, which should help with like, you know, hip momentum. Or if the person's on top, you can be on your back as the penetrator, and that's a lot easier to just hip thrust.
Yeah.
You know, actually, I think I
do
feel
some
like
Jane Fondas.
I would be super remiss if I did not mention, I think what is a really important thing about particularly people with penises and ass play is that sometimes you won't be hard while this is happening. And that's, I think we are so programmed of like sex equals hard dick, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and there are especially like, you know, I'm here because I answered Lola's questionnaire about prostate play earlier, right? And particularly with prostate focused playing, a lot of the times I might be hard going into it. But as soon as all the focus is on my ass or in my prostate, if I'm not actively stimulating my penis, it will not be hard.
Sure.
It doesn't mean it doesn't feel good. It doesn't mean I'm not loving it. But they're not the same body systems, you know? And I think for me, coming from a much more like cis het kind of sex world into the relationship I'm in now, there was definitely some anxiety on my part of like, oh, we're doing this thing that I really enjoy, but like, why isn't my dick hard while it's happening?
Yeah. Does
and
it
so
still
for
count
any,
as sex?
Right. So for any listeners who have not done this, who are thinking about it, like your dick might not be hard and it is okay.
Yeah. And also, I can't speak for everyone, but I love a soft dick. Like,
yes, me too.
I find them so cute and so non-threatening and so fun to play with. And I'm wondering, though, how does it feel when it's not hard? Like, is it noticeable? Is it like tingly?
Well, yeah, I mean, like direct stimulation on a not hard penis definitely feels different. Mm-hmm. It's not bad. But I think for me, like something I had said to Lola in my replies to her questionnaire earlier was that I think one of the main things, which I think is applicable to all sex acts, is that the orgasm is not the point. Right. If we get like end goal focus, why like doesn't that take all the like the fun should be right now? Does this feel awesome?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Then let's keep doing this. And if you happen to come while doing this awesome thing, that's like even better. Mm-hmm. But the focus should be on giving pleasure, receiving pleasure. And like, if you come later, that's cool too. If you don't, that's also fine.
Yeah.
And I think if we take like the goal orientation out of it, it frees a lot of things up.
I think we can be like goal oriented in terms of like, these are the things that I want to do. Or I want to try. It's more of like being outcome oriented. So like if this thing happens or not will determine if I am happy or sad or I feel fulfilled or not.
Yeah. Set goals, but don't be pissed if they don't happen. Just try to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, exactly.
How long do you wait into a new relationship before you bring up pegging? I don't know, you guys.
It depends how important pegging is to you in your romantic or sexual relationships. Because if you're like, I got to have this in my relationship, it is not a relationship unless there's pegging, then you need to bring that up earlier. But if it's if it's not necessary, then, you know, it depends. I have one relationship I'm in where pegging is not on the table at all. And another one was very, very much on the table. So it kind of depends on the person. But I mean, I don't know. I'm never in a rush to do this with someone. I let it be known that it's like an interest of mine. Also can't really hide it because I have like a giant educational series out on the internet.
Yeah.
So like they'll figure it out, but I really like to let them bring it up with their own, you know, curiosity, or I might mention things, but I never like ask or pressure because I want them to want to do it. Or like, I'll be like, I'm curious about this. But it's kind of, I mean, it's up to you. If I would say get in a place where you can feel comfortable talking about all types of sexual things, not just pegging. And if you can do that, then you can talk about pegging too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it should be like separated from any other discussion of like kinks and needs and wants. Like it's just another one.
It's just another one. Yeah. And separating it is going to make it feel weirder.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's not separate. It's like, are you into ass play?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like if it should be part of any other conversation you're having with a new partner about like what you want out of your sexual relationship.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do think of it as like another like checklist thing or whatever. And if it is that for you, like, okay, we'll be upfront about that. But also don't expect anybody to like check something off your list if they're not ready or if that's not something that they're into.
Also, too, I've had this happen a lot. I've had people where they've, you know, done butt stuff once or twice before me and had a bad experience. So they think that they don't like it, but it's because it wasn't done properly. And when I say properly, I mean with like, you know, the right amount of breathing and slowness and lubricant. And like, I've like knocked it out of the park so many times with these people. I was like, don't worry, mama's gotcha.
Yeah.
And so also like, don't think that if you don't enjoy it once that you don't like it. For really any experience too.
Oh my God. My first anal, I really did not like. And then with another person, lots of breathing.
I just applied all of my pegging tutorial to my own anal experience. And then I started liking it.
Totally. And Lola, as a giver, what is your favorite part about pegging?
So I have a massive case of penis envy. So I get to wear a dick. And I like someone trusting their body with me that much. And like, I like providing that experience to them. And I'm like an egotist. So if there's a mirror, I just love, like when you're talking about the spit roast mirror, I'm like, oh, that sounds so great.
Yeah.
It's just a position you're not normally in. And it's very subversive. And I do like that about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But my pegging is very sensual too. I don't do a lot of like degrading kind of pegging. My pegging's with lovers. And I was telling you and Robin about, this was the first time I was pegging someone while someone was penetrating me all at the same time.
Yes.
And I thought it was going to be so difficult. I'm like, I don't know how we're logistically going to do this. And it worked quickly and
human
well.
Human
like,
peg-to-pede.
That's what my friend called it, the human fuckapede.
Nice.
It was great. Everyone had such a good time in that position for different reasons.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds so fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Awesome.
Jealous me.
Jealous me. I think there's collective jealousy here.
Yeah. And compersion. Really happy for you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys, this has been so much fun. And I'm sure other people after listening to this episode will have more questions. Would either of you be open to coming back for some more Patreon content?
Always.
Amazing.
I'd be delighted.
And Lola, I already know about your first time coming because you've been on this podcast before. But Brian, we usually ask everyone who's a guest on this podcast about their first come ever. Do you happen to remember yours?
Ever. I mean, I have very early memories of sneaking into my older brother's room and finding Penthouse Variations magazines, which were all letters and stories. And I remember like elementary school masturbating to those.
Nice. Erotica.
Yes. Yeah.
Some guy was saying to me the other day, he's like, oh, you guys love erotica. And now I'm like, isn't Penthouse? Wasn't that like mostly erotica?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Before
I don't know.
They added the photos?
Right. And I think maybe like our formative experiences inform all of our later experiences, right?
Yeah.
Even now, obviously porn's great, but I love like reading a good piece of erotica.
A little smut, yeah.
It's great. It's great. There's very little of it that's good, but.
Do you remember, Ish, how old you were around the first come?
5th grade, I think.
Nice.
So, was that 10, 11?
Cool. And how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 40.
Cool.
Yeah.
You guys, this has been so much fun, so informative. Really appreciate you again being so last minute and available to us.
It's worked out great.
Yeah, so fun. Lola, can you tell everybody where they can find you online and your upcoming classes? Because I'm sure they're going to want to know.
Oh, yeah. And like, I guess kind of thanks to the pandemic, but that's where the plan was. Everything's recorded and online too. So
it's awesome.
You can get access to the past at lolajean.com. That is also my social media handles with the DOT spelled out. And if this podcast wasn't enough for you, you can purchase access to my explicit 5-part pegging series to get more of those juicy details, as well as other classes. And actually a fun one coming up is called Finger Bang, Master the Hand Jive, where we're going to go over a lot of fingering techniques for people with vulvas.
Unreal. Okay,
that
Brian,
was inspired by a client. He was like, I'd pay for it. I was like, okay.
Hell yeah. You guys, honestly, the conversations, whether it's with Lola's clients or the companions, like we don't come up with these topics ourselves all the time. Like it's always like what people want to know or want to hear. And it's like always it's a fun collaboration and give and take.
Okay.
It's such as sex. Brian, we're not going to tell anybody where to find you. You are our mystery and we love it that way. But I do have to ask you guys both this, which I have to ask everybody after a sexual experience, which this was. Brian, did you finish?
Yes.
Okay, great. Lola Jean, did you finish?
I finished.
You guys, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Happy to come anytime.
Amazing. And we will see you guys next time on How Come? Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
It's not you, it's me. I try so hard to finish honestly. They say you'll know when you go all the way from A right down to O. Oh no, I think that I still got a ways to go. Oh, I'm sick of this and I have got to know. How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause I can't do it by myself.